During the 90s, the Stephen King miniseries was an event. It's hard to quantify if streaming was your gateway into television, but King was, well, a king during his peak in the 90s. And when we got a long-form version of his stories, you sat down and watched. So as the weather gets colder and the big snowstorm lingers off of the horizon, I'd like to revisit one of King's best stories. One with heart, soul, and regret, and one made specifically for television. So let's head back to the island and make a choice no one should have to make. This is Storm of the Century.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
And the last miniseries King had in the 90s was, in my humble opinion, the best of its time. Set on a little tall island in 1989, Storm of the Century tells the tale of a small fishing community that became isolated during a ravenous snowstorm. Only finding shelter isn't the only worry. A man with extraordinary powers and a grim request shows up, changing the course of every life on that island. If you haven't seen it, I'd come back to this video after. You gotta trust me, it is worth the wait. So of course, spoilers ahead for the rest. Airing as a 3-part miniseries on ABC in February of 1999, Storm of the Century revolves around a handful of island members to flesh out its story. But the focal point and the story's hero is Mike Anderson, played by Joe Hackett himself, the always excellent Tim Daly. As the storm grows and its seriousness becomes apparent, Andre Lenoge awaits his capture after murdering sweet old Martha Clarendon. A man on a mission, a man with a request.
Give me what I want and I'll go away.
Something that I've always appreciated about this story is how Lenoge plays the long game. Lenoge kills Martha and waits, knowing he'll be caught. He sits patiently in jail as he murders other residents, forcing them to commit suicide, leaving his message to be seen by all. Every single thing Lenoge does is in service of getting his preferred outcome. It's a slow build that at closer inspection is the building blocks of another worldly being's master plan. Lenoge can take his time. He must. If he reveals himself too early, the town may be too frightened to act. Or it may do the opposite. It could bond them with the common goal of fighting evil. Lenoge thoughtfully plants the seeds of doubt, shame, and fear. He lets his powers be known slowly and for all to see. Once Mike and pal Hatch, played by Jerry Mitchell himself, Casey Shimashko, can't get Lenoge into the back entrance of the town's makeshift jail, which is awkwardly located at the back of the supermarket, a small town. They must go through the busy front. He begins to spout the dirty secrets of the townsfolk, causing a silent panic, while also making sure the others will talk. He's slowly pushing them into place, yet murder a few so they know he means business, and reveal deep and intimate info so that if the threat of violence doesn't shake you, your checkered past becoming public will. The island can keep a secret, and though most of the darkness may be peripheral to everyone, it's a smile and mind your own business life. Lenoge chose this place to ask for his favor because these people are flawed, they have something to lose. So by the time he reveals his ask,
Give me what I want and give it freely and I'll go away.
You've already made up your mind. You just haven't realized it yet.
Call him Fjord.
As Andre Lenoge gives an iconic performance, playing it respectful with a pinch of upper class, yet has the intensity of a cold-blooded killer. All he asks is for a simple favor.
Give me what I want and I'll go away.
Tim Daly plays the everyman Mike with a kind and morally strong demeanor. From his stance on not killing what he knows to be conceptually evil, to begging the town to reconsider on Lenoge's ask, Daly gives Mike a true sense of self and plays off Fjord with ease. Now, I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've seen a morally good character, and enjoyed something that isn't as fashionable as it once was. You also have the great Jeffrey DeMunn chewing the scenery as the slimy town manager, a broken, forced murderer. Katrina Withers, played by Julie Nicholson. Deborah Ferrantino stands tall above the rest as Molly, a mother who eventually loses everything. And I'm not saying everyone in this hits, as, some line readings are corny, and what may sound great on page doesn't always sound as great on screen. But with that in mind, a 90s TV miniseries will never be at the level of something like True Detective or The Outsider. But Storm of the Century is one of the ones of its era that goes for broke. And King was able to get in some dark commentary on the willingness that a smile and a handshake can forgive some deeper troubles. A murder, a hate crime, screwing over work and friends. Hell, even the abortion angle seems a bit dark for ABC in the late 90s, but all this gives a real credence to the story. Yet it's never so black and white. Mike is either aware of some of the things that LaNoge spilled out, or he purposely turns the other way because life is messy. Yet it's the age-old saying, we either live together or die alone. Is it worth everyone dying on principle or losing one to save many? And having LaNoge not only bound by some set of rules that do seem slightly fair, but have him conduct his plan as more of a necessary evil, one that he doesn't derive much pleasure from, make this tale far more engaging. LaNoge could have easily been more aggressive, more sadistic, and the point would have ended more or less the same. But LaNoge is here on business, nothing more.
Why are you wearing those?
Because I choose to.
Directed by Craig R. Baxley, who did some solid action with I Come in Peace, Stone Cold, and Action Jackson.
How do you like your ribs?
He brings more of a muted yet tense and stylistic approach. The man knows how to compose a shot. And Storm of the Century, despite its limitations, has that cinematic look and feel. Shots like the people disappearing while watching the lighthouse fall. The top-down lighthouse shot, to a simple and beautiful wide of LaNoge entering the town hall. And nothing too out of the box, but it fits the story and setting well. Now, there are issues, of course. We were still in the early days of wide and accessible CGI, and yeah, it looks a bit rough. The cane is cheesy and something that may have worked better either cut out or never shown in motion. Even back then, it never really worked. The demon teeth. Nobody's looking at you, LaNoge. Why are you doing this? For the wall? Again, one of those things that might sound cool on paper, but man, in execution, just cut it. And the hacky main accent that comes and goes depending on the take used. Though, I will admit, and I've said this in previous videos and I will say it here, I also love a hacky Stephen King main accent, so I guess this one's a draw.
Calm down. Stop acting like mainlandish.
Oh, be smart, Mike Madison.
Mrs. Kingsbury, you look after him. Give him a hot tea, or better yet, give him some whiskey.
And with any story set around a hard choice, I like to think that Storm of the Century isn't as cut and dry as some would believe. Is LaNoge pure evil? I don't think so. And he's not good, but as a being who's lived many lifetimes and has seen things we couldn't comprehend.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
His indifference to human life seems at least somewhat understandable. How much thought do you give to the housefly? Something living with what seems to it as a lifetime. As he says, he wants to pass on his knowledge. Evil, soul-sucking knowledge? Doubtful. This thing has lived and learned things we could never. And though this means he may not be what we consider good, there is definitely more gray here than you would want to believe. Little Tall Island is a small seaside island. It's a small religious community. Mike assumes it to be Legion, but maybe not. Hell, LaNoge may not even be his real name. And though a simple religious explanation may suffice, the main religious figure, the priest, is a pedophile.
11 and 9 they are. Cute little blondes. He likes them a lot.
And something this ancient must fit into that narrative. But however you interpret LaNoge, we can agree that this is one of the best endings for the medium. A child, willfully given. If not, all will die. And after what we've seen, it is clear LaNoge has the power to do so. What would you do? She rolled the dice and lost, but the dice had to be rolled. And if you're with Mike, I can agree that sometimes the moral high ground might be the best. And in true King fashion, we had a soulful ending where some couldn't live with the choice. Others moved on, and the town and its people were never the same. They were changed by the Storm of the Century. And what a beautiful epilogue. Mike has lived an entire life after the island, found a new home, got an education, and has moved on, only to see his son. And what greater ending line than a man who, in his heart, still loves Molly somewhere deep down, knows that to relay this information would do nothing but add to the pain. Only, like most of us in our darkest hour, we know that one must hold steady and not lead with the heart, because in daylight, we know better. This is a cash and carry world. Pay as you go. Sometimes you don't have to pay a little. Mostly, it's a lot. But once in a while, it's all you have. The Stephen King boom started in the 80s and, in my opinion, peaked in the 90s in terms of output. With a smart move to adapt stories in the TV miniseries fashion, it opened up his world to an entire new audience, while the film side was running full steam ahead. And though I'd argue we are in the middle of a King renaissance, a second wave if you will, there was a certain naive charm to what I'd refer to as the everything but the kitchen sink approach to his adaptations during this time. Between film and television, almost everything and anything became an adaptation. And though his work wasn't as refined as it is now, we got some of the most inventive and wild swings during the 90s. It may not be the best in terms of quality and execution as a whole, but it was by far the most interesting. We got wild ones like Sleepwalkers and Pet Sematary 2, while hitting cinematic gold with Misery and The Green Mile. And let's not forget it gave us the greatest movie of all time.
That's goddamn right.
On today's episode of The Black Sheep, I'm aiming my sights on one of the most dog-piled King entries out there. One that is so hated and made fun of, you'd think this video would be career suicide. I'm defending one I've always liked, one that fits into that bizarrely enjoyable category. 1995's The Mangler. Based on a quick 20-page short story from King's Night Shift collection, The Mangler tells the simple tale of a corrupt small Maine town that houses a haunted industrial laundry press machine. Now, here's how I would sell it. It's a silly Stephen King story that takes the ridiculous premise, plays it razor straight to the point of fascination, yet fills it with bigger-than-life characters, a slightly gothic aesthetic, and gore that would fit nicely alongside the equally strange flicks like Basket Case and The Burning. Night Shift has 20 short stories, and The Mangler is one of the simpler ones. It's a story that in written form is just as dumb-sounding as the plot of the movie adaptation. A synopsis that is more of an exercise in, what if? Than a true need to tell the most frightening tale. Basically, The Mangler is and will always be a ludicrous premise. I mean, haunted laundry press is what we get here. No twists or turns. It is a haunted laundry press from the opening scene, and God, do I love that the 90s were so damn angsty.
Did I tell you? All right.
Because if this somehow got greenlit today, half the runtime we spent winking at the audience, and be stuffed full of dialogue mentions and how ridiculous the whole situation is. But the 90s were a special, if not somewhat misguided time, where The Mangler got the same treatment as Pet Sematary. Our hero and main character is the grizzled and too old for this shit Officer John Hunton, played flawlessly by the always great Ted Levine. Hunton is written here as a man on the edge, a man who has lost his wife and is barely hanging on. Yes, this haunted laundry machine story has a hard-boiled detective character that has the same attitude as one who's 2 days away from retirement and just can't do it anymore.
Shut up, goddammit. Don't start with the sprout breath political mystical bullshit, Mark.
Go on, threaten me. I'll shove them crutches up your moldy ass, you fucking clown.
This is bullshit, Mark. Get the fuck out of this town before I turn completely numb.
It's this heavy dramatic angle that The Mangler follows throughout. It sells the machine as the embodiment of evil. And yeah, it's not even close to being scary, but the movie does its damnedest to invest in its danger and is why this is such a joyous experience. Miserable and depressed cop? Check. A kind occultist friend who believes in ancient evil? Check. Wicked owner who looks like a comic book villain. Check. Intense gore. Again, check. And the Mangler never once laughs or winks at itself. Now should it? Many would argue yes. But to me, it's always been far more interesting of a challenge to do what was done here, silly premise aside. And even when the damn thing comes alive, the threat is at 11 the entire time. And again, I'm not saying this nailed the scary elements, but more that I'm impressed at the effort made here to try and make this whole thing gel.
What the fuck was that? Jesus Christ.
From the first gruesome death to the batshit crazy ending chase, director Tobe Hooper takes things super serious, while finding a clever way of developing the world in a slightly embellished way. The world here is grounded and presented as real, but there are many choices that exaggerate it as well. The Blue Ribbon Laundry Warehouse is so Vincent Price level haunted looking that it's a character in itself. The Mangler has such a specific steampunk look that is believable enough, yet looks like something out of a comic book. The warehouse looks like it was condemned at the turn of the century, and is stylized with an almost Tim Burton Batman design. And not to mention every night scene is covered in that aggressive 80s fog. I love it. I love it. I don't care. It's clearly the 90s. Yet there are these odd choices that make it sort of alternate dimension, kind of timeless. The police have these kind of weird old-fashioned uniforms. The town's crime scene photographer is straight out of Dick Tracy, with his bulb-popping camera, and has the most villainous makeup job for reasons? While every set here has an older, can't-quite-place-it look to it. Hell, the ending chase scene basically ends up in the Crypt Keeper's lair. Now, Tobe Hooper could have easily phoned this in. You know, give it enough of an interest to have it passable, but no. No, he tries. He adds in the perfect amount of pageantry, and it gives us enough exaggerated atmosphere to make that old horror section at My Family Video proud. As the story continues and more people die at the hand of the machine, we get some bombastic performances that aim for the sky. What works on page doesn't always work on screen. And Hooper wisely upgraded Officer Hutton into a great, if not hilariously grumpy guy. When he's helping with the exorcism at the end, he exudes an energy I find very relatable. Like him tossing shit at the beast.
Amen, goddammit!
And here's the thing, I'd watch a movie on this character alone. Just solving cases, yelling at everybody for no reason, chugging in acids, and just giving up constantly.
Get that thing out of my sight!
Hooper brings back his Eaten Alive co-star, Mr. Robert Englund. Bill Gartley is a wild ride, and it's clearly a character Englund is having a blast with. It's over the top, it is hammy, it's a Bond-level villain. When the Mangler tries to eat his loyal yet foolish foreman, he does a dance. Everything about Gartley rocks. And this is a character that didn't really exist in King's story. I mean, we hear the name mentioned, but that's it. This cane-holding, leg-brace maniac is solely just a cinematic creation, and pairing him with Hutton is movie magic.
All your powerful friends and all your money don't mean shit to me, Gartley.
Power is what holds things together!
I blame the boom of the bro dude review style for a lot of the problems in the world today. Listen, I'm not saying there aren't actually terrible movies that should be made fun of, but there is a sweet spot where things can be outlandish yet fun. The Mangler is a bizarre and surreal tale that's somehow tethered to a somewhat real world, and at its most goofy, it's impressively sincere. Tobe Hooper never got the respect he deserves, and that's a different argument for a different video. But he added in an insane amount of creativity to a story that, in its book form, is pretty cut and dry. And he leaned the perfect amount into the satirical nature of old money, blue-collar work, and the lack of upward mobility. For a story that gets boiled down into haunted laundry machine, there's still some well-thought-out ideas. They're just executed in a weird way. Like the rich sacrificing loved ones for wealth. In the end, The Mangler is a great double feature, alongside the other underrated sweaty factory flick, Graveyard Shift. There is fun to be had. Like many of us on Joblo Arrow in the Head, I love Stephen King. I always have. The movies in the 80s and the 90s, I was there for every miniseries. And the thing is, even at its worst, filmic King is cheesy, it's campy, it's fun. Side note, am I the only one that really wants a Blu-ray special edition of Storm of the Century? It was probably the best miniseries in the 90s for sure, and one that still holds up today. The acting's really good, the story's epic, the atmosphere is chilling, especially for network TV.
Speaking of your daddy.
Why are you wearing those?
Because I choose to.
You got a guy from Wings, and the villain has this little saying that I've lived my life by.
Give me what I want and I'll go away.
And so, keeping with King, I'd like to jump into a film that embodies everything the Black Sheep column stands for. I'm here to dig deep and give some love to Mick Garris and Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. I want to thank you guys for watching The Black Sheep, and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now back to the show. Starting off in Bodega Bay, California. Haha, Puppet Master. We're introduced to a grisly scene at the hands of the nomadic Brady family. An oceanside house covered in dead, mutilated cats with the body of a little girl inside. The two main cops, one being Mark Hamill with one hell of a mustache. Fake of course, but he pulls it off so well. I really wish he would have sported it more. Look at that thing. It could run for office and win. Looking good, Mark. After an obligatory cat jump scare, common back then, our boys in blue discover the corpse of a little girl drained of life, in what I believe to be a nice nod to the Tobe Hooper classic, The Underrated Life Force. Am I right? This opening scene gives us, the audience, everything we need to know, condensed into one scene. Life-sucking beings, a hatred of cats, and a healthy amount of cameos throughout. Quick fact, these aren't props, but the bodies of real cats that were given from the local pound. Seriously, could you imagine this scene full of real dead cats going on today? What a shit show that would be. Either way, we are given all the information we would need, even showing us the dueling tones, at times serious, while also being campy and over the top. Charles and Mary Brady are the last of a werecat-like, soul-sucking creature, traversing the land, feeding and fleeing. A story King wrote specifically for the big screen. Sleepwalkers is an odd and interesting little tale, at times cautious and slow burning, more subdued horror, while also a schlocky B movie for the ages. One that doesn't always work, but its weird plot makes this prime for cult status. Brian Krause plays the charming pretty boy Charles, who's tasked with hunting down prey in the form of hot innocent virgins, so he and his mother Mary can feed. So despite what most of the internet says, the performances mostly work here, and work pretty damn well. Mostly. Krause is believable as a good-looking and charming Midwesterner. He is a perfect bait. He wins over his class, gets a good laugh at the expense of Beetlejuice's Otho.
Actually, Mr. Fallows, a box has 6 sides.
And it's clearly the type of guy who's gonna try and your girlfriend. I gotta hand it to Charles. He has a solid plan. It's hinted that they may be the last of their kind, and that their human form is set, meaning Mary will always be 40, and Charles will always be a high schooler that looks like he's 24. Somehow in this ridiculous movie, you have a bit of sympathy for them. Their relationship is the crux of the story, and it could have been schlocky and surface level, and if so, this would have been more than acceptable and fit perfectly within the midnight movie atmosphere Garrison and King were going for. But casting Alison Krieger elevates a lot here. As the matriarch, it's just the two of them, but she's in charge. Mary puts her son out there to hunt and to feed her, even though she is more than capable herself. Since it's about the life force, or the souls of virgins, she probably could have gone to any high school and fed off the entire chess team, but what are you gonna do? Mary is manipulative and jealous, but you also feel for her too.
We just have to take care of each other.
The loneliness of very likely being the last of their kind. If the line was more self-aware, who's to say it wouldn't be more like them? And that they can never truly settle down. It's a good way to keep these two from being one-note characters. Look at this scene where Tanya surprises Charles at his house.
Oh, they're strays, but we'll get rid of them. We're good at getting rid of pests.
Look how calm and calculated Mary is. She wants Tanya dead, and dead yesterday, but basically smiles through her clenched teeth.
surprisingly intense, and it's such a great performance. Not to mention when she loses her shit in the final act, and convincingly goes mad and kicks ass. Bravo, Alice Krieg. Bravo. Now, I've read that the male sleepwalker eats, then passes it to the female via intercourse. Maybe. It doesn't seem like a very convenient way for a species to survive. And this is never said in the film, but this may be the case. I was kinda hoping their odd, incestualized relationship was out of loneliness, and a lack of regard for normal sleepwalker etiquette. I still think Mary could have eaten some poor dorky kids. Around the 50-minute mark is where this film goes for broke. This is a tale of two films, and the second half bears very little in tone to the first. I do like how serious and cautious King treats the first half, but this was always meant to be a B-movie for the heyday of the drive-in. And once Tanya stabs Charles with a corkscrew, it becomes pure madcap entertainment. Puns, one-liners, we get some very sassy talkback from the Bradys.
Cop kebab!
No vegetables, no dessert. Those are the rules.
I don't believe you fired a warning shot, officer. People really should learn to keep their hands to themselves. Here's yours.
The gore is also great here. When Otho gets suspicious of Charles, we have a great hand removal, which at the time is surprisingly gory. We get Ron Perlman, who's always a great asshole, gets his arm snapped back and knocked out with it, a sweet fence impaling, and some chewed off fingers. It really gets ridiculous when a cop gets stabbed with an ear of corn, but that is why Sleepwalkers is actually great. Pistols blowing up cars, weird creature sex, and a goddamn corn on the cob kill. Is Sleepwalkers ridiculous? Yes, but no. It's dumb fun, and I'm here to tell you this. It's a good time. Look at this. He shoots Mary point blank with a shotgun, and it goes through her, blowing off the cat, clear across the room. Look at it. It's not just good. It's not just great.
It's amazing.
Okay, so after reading some reviews, maybe I'm the only one who doesn't find the idea of cats being deadly to these ancient creatures a bad idea. They are natural predators. I like the idea of these feral cats, which are poisonous to sleepwalkers, surrounding their prey as they grow in numbers. I don't know, to me it's a great visual, probably the least ridiculous thing in this movie. This cute little shit would die if a cat saliva touched her. Yes, you would. Yes, you would. And again, as someone who is super allergic, if cats surrounded my house like this, I'd be as good as Macaulay Culkin in My Girl.
And where is his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
I'd also like to give some credit to Mick Garris. Coming off Critters 2 and Psycho 4, this film has a distinct identity. Mick's directing choices here not only fit the film, but he gives this film great energy. Small things like the addition of the cat vision, the sweeping movement every time we see the car change, or when Charles gets backhanded by his mom. After a rewatch, this feels exciting, and I'd argue, wacky story aside, Mick is an underrated director and knows how to set up a scene. It's cool to see that he has great friends. From Stephen King to Clive Barker and Tobe Hooper, we get John Landis and Joe Dante, and not to mention Mark Great Mustache Hamill in the beginning. Let's not forget about the heart of Sleepwalkers, Machen Amick's Tanya. She plays the innocent virgin who's meant to be the food that will sustain Mary and Charles. She plays young, beautiful, and full of life, like it's her natural state of being. I am in my mid-30s, and her infectious energy and optimistic vibe, I mean, it really takes you back to young love. Amick can act, no doubt. A great part of Twin Peaks, and though I wish she had more to do in the surprisingly great revival, when she breaks down to Ed and Norma getting together, in a moment of closure I never knew I needed. I love you. Thank you, a king among men, Mr. Lynch. Her beauty and wavelength gives me hope. A small thing like her biting her lip. Jesus. My heart is fluttering. She got me so spiritual. I'm on a Van Morrison type of level. Okay, so what I'm really trying to say is, she makes me want to be a better man.
Lord, if I ever